Without further ado, Sarah Lyons is here and she is going to do a lovely presentation on accessibility, ArcBC, and AI. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for inviting me to the Lunch and Learn today. My name is Sarah Lyons and I am presenting about all things inclusion. I am a district inclusive education facilitator with New Westminster School District number 40, and I am the co-chair of the competency-based IEP provincial group. And I do some writing for Queen's University. I wrote the Social Emotional Learning AQ course. So I'm excited to speak to you about inclusion because, as we know, our classes are very diverse and we want to make sure that all students feel included and are learning to their best capability. So here in New Westminster, I'm on the traditional and unceded territories of the Kakite First Nation, as well as all Coast Salish peoples, and I'm honored to be able to learn and do my work on these beautiful lands. Shape of the day for my session is going to be talking about how we infuse trauma-informed and culturally relevant teaching into the schools and make sure that all of our staff are knowledgeable about these areas, and then also access points to curriculum. Again, we don't want students just in the same classroom breathing the same air but not engaged in the learning. We want all students engaged in the learning. So how do we do that with the diversity that we're seeing in the classes? And I love the fact that ArcBC has so many amazing resources to make sure that our students can engage in different ways in the learning, especially to do with literacy. Self-awareness and self-management and social awareness skills are intertwined in our teaching of academics. And in British Columbia, it is phenomenal that we have the personal and social awareness as one of our 3 core competency areas, and that it's named and it's important because without students being able to regulate and feel comfortable in school and manage their own emotions and behaviors, they would not be able to engage as fully in the academics. So they do go hand in hand. And then talking about responsible decision making and how do we help students develop those skills to deal with conflict. First People's Principles of Learning is something important for all educators and all staff in schools to be aware of and to infuse in their daily work with students. And it goes hand in hand with the social emotional learning competencies as well. So it's something that doesn't have to be extra, it is infused. So trauma sensitive and culturally relevant teaching. How do we do this and how do we train staff to really take on these values as they practice in their daily time with students? We talk about trauma and all the different kinds of trauma that students may have dealt with or are still dealing with. And I believe they're saying that up to 25% of our students have dealt with significant trauma or are dealing with it on a consistent basis. And you can look for yourself on all the different forms of trauma, because sometimes we just think about the physical, sexual abuse, childhood abuse and neglect, but we don't think about things like grief and loss coming from different war-torn countries, medical interventions that many of our students who have those chronic health concerns are dealing with, and how hard that would be for them. And then, of course, the cultural and intergenerational historical trauma. Our Indigenous students and families most likely are dealing with that intergenerational trauma, as well as others in society, whether it has to do with poverty or racism, discrimination, etc. So here's the 4 areas that staff should focus on. We need to realize the prevalence of trauma that I just spoke about and understand different types of trauma, and then recognize the symptoms that trauma can cause. You might see a student fully shutting down. You might see a student avoiding coming to school or coming into class. You might see a student being aggressive and angry. All of these things could be behaviors that are symptoms of trauma. So educating staff about that so that they ask the why behind behaviors. Responding to the trauma and understanding how we can change schools to be more trauma informed in classrooms. Even environmentally, the lighting in schools. Is there a cozy peace corner in a classroom where students can take that time to breathe and do some self-regulation when they're feeling re-traumatized from something, or they're having images of what they've been through, maybe at home or in the community or in a previous part of their life. And then resist re-traumatization. So some of our policies in schools can be re-traumatizing, such as academic testing, especially time tests, especially if a student has a learning disability or learning difference. Many of this can be anxiety provoking and re-traumatizing for some of our students. Loud noises, bells, unexpected happenings in the classroom, unexpected people coming into the classroom, many things can re-traumatize students. So just having that on our radar. Thinking about our staff that work in some of these schools that have a high prevalence of trauma and what they are dealing with on the daily when they are hearing the sad stories, and they might be reporting to MCFD about something that's happening in a student's life, and then they go home and they're thinking about that student and worry about them, thinking about how our staff might be dealing with secondary trauma and how it affects the wellness of our teachers, EAs, and administrators, and what are we doing in schools to help provide opportunities to unpack that and to bolster up the wellness of our staff. On the left-hand side, you'll see the educator social emotional learning wheel, and on the right-hand side, you'll see the wheel for all the teaching of the social emotional learning competencies, and that is from a website, casel.org, casel.org, a phenomenal website that if you're looking to make sure that schools and classrooms embrace social emotional learning skills, please check out CASEL. On the left, though, thinking about how we can support our educators again with the wellness and be proactive so that we don't have as many people feeling stressed out, leaving the profession, taking long leaves for medical health concerns. So embracing cultural responsive teaching, but also embracing the cultural differences in our staff, examining identity, making sure everybody feels seen, heard, and valued, and establishing those balance and boundaries so that we're not emailing on weekends or 5 p.m., which can stress out people, obviously, some of those boundaries that have to do with work life. And then orienting towards optimism. How do we keep the morale of a school or a district up? What can we do? What sort of activities? What sort of bonding? What sort of professional development? Exploring our own emotions with regards to what we're seeing in schools and some of those stressful situations and the secondary trauma, and then cultivating compassionate, curious communities. And there's self-compassion is something that educators can work on the daily, and gratitude. We're going to talk about universal design for learning because I fully believe that when teachers understand UDL and they plan backwards with the framework in mind, that they are going to have more access points for all of our students and more engagement for all of our students, which equals less behaviors. And again, the ARC-BC resources are a way of engaging students in different formats. So if a student is having a learning disability or a learning difference, making sure that they have text to speech options that can read aloud for them. They can see all of the words highlighted as it's reading aloud, etc. And they can pause and unpack some of the vocabulary. That is one of the resources that would be part of offering different formats for students. So variability is the rule, not the exception nowadays. Gone are the days where we can give the exact same textbook, open it to the exact same page, and have all students automatically be engaging in that way. We have such diversity in our classrooms that if we try to teach that way, we're going to lose probably a third or more of our students. And then, like I said, the behaviors and the disengaged, it will not happen. It will be hard for teachers if they try and teach that way. Choice is very important. So again, there's so many options on the cast.org website that talk about how we provide choice. And one of them is choice boards. And we can use our Microsoft Copilot. We can use the UDL chatbot that's called Ludia by Poe, P-O-E, and all of these resources will be given at the end. But we can create choice boards, and they say that not giving students more than 7 choices, but the sweet spot is 4 choices when we're allowing them to show their knowledge in different ways. And again, talking about AI, I know that ARC-BC does a lot of AI presentations and has those resources for you, but it's just exploding. There's so much to learn in this area. But myself using Copilot, using Ludia, Magic School, etc., has been fun to see what I've forgotten, because you can put in a lesson plan and to say Ludia, And then you can see, oh, I forgot about these barriers that students might be having, and then how do I address those barriers? And it will give you different suggestions. And with Ludia, they are taking everything from the principles of the UDL framework on cast.org. So I highly recommend checking it out. So Universal Design for Learning is a framework with three principal areas. How do we engage our students with multiple means of engagement so that all students want to be at school, want to learn, and have some autonomy and advocacy for their learning and what they choose in the way of topics? And then representation. How do you represent the information in multiple different ways so that students can learn? Because we know Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences, everybody learns differently. And then how do students show their knowledge in a variety of different ways with action and expression? So basically, you could go to each of the areas and get more information, and you could look at the considerations and remember what you should do to provide choice and autonomy within your lessons. And it gives you some ideas. And then welcoming different students' identities and interests, and it gives you some ideas. And that's what you're going to see in Ludia. It's going to actually take the lesson plan that you are dealing with and tell you what you have to think about. It's hard to think about it all. And here's your considerations on how you present the content, supporting opportunities to optimize the display of information. So, how are you displaying the information? And then, how are the students perceiving the information? And this is a lot of tech tools. Different languages are being spoken, so using tech tools to help with interpretation of different languages that might be newer for some. And then the final area of students showing their knowledge in different ways, honoring the methods used to respond and navigate, and allowing for movement and flexibility, and not just having students show their knowledge using pen and pencil. So much on this website. This is something that you could go down the rabbit hole with. And Ludia AI has taken all of this and harnessed it to make your life easier when developing lessons and unit plans. I wanted to show you a platform that I am very interested in because it was developed to address universal design for learning. And the two people that created Ludia AI, they took all of the principles of universal design for learning from cast.org, the website that I recommended earlier, and they created this whole platform so that you can put in questions about lessons and content, and Ludia will give you ideas on how to make sure that you're addressing the barriers that the students might come up against and just basically UDLing your lessons. So nowadays we have many tech tools, and I know that ArcBC goes through many of those in the presentations, and they are wonderful to engage our students in different ways. How can we get students demonstrating the knowledge kinesthetically, out of their seats, moving around? How can we make sure that there's hands-on opportunities for inquiry-based learning, etc.? And how do we make sure that our students that are coming to us from different places or where English is not the first language are able to understand the symbols? And again, tech tools are phenomenal. We could have the vocabulary with little pictures popping up above it when you do immersive reader. So many things out there right now to help our learners. And then how do learners strategically express themselves and express their knowledge? This is about triangulating the way that we assess. So allowing students to show their knowledge with hands-on projects or demonstration, as well as orally, as well as in written format. I know that maybe when I grew up and went to school, everything was shown in written format, and now we are triangulating the way that we assess. We're talking about some of our students with intellectual disabilities and how they can be in a classroom, even at the higher levels, even in high school. And this is something I created for a foods class at our big high school here for a student that was not able to engage with some of the reading and writing that the other students were doing because they were, again, reading and writing at probably a grade 2, 3 level, and they're in a high school course. So how do they still engage with the big ideas of understanding wellness and nutrition? And sometimes it's hands-on activities of sorting, etc. So you have to be able to have those readily available for our students so that they're not just in the classroom breathing the same air. This is something that a learning support teacher could help with, so that the classroom teacher doesn't feel all alone in developing these sort of tasks for students that might have an intellectual disability. Sorting, colors, etc. Inquiry-based learning. I love this video. This is from Edutopia, and it's a video about how students can shape their own learning with topics and how they can really become presenters to each other and work collaboratively. I'm going to show a few seconds of this video and then you can check it out on your own if you're interested. But inquiry-based learning is something that I'm very interested in.
I realize how much more they learn. And when I see that they take action and they're applying the skills that they learn in here, I feel like I've done my job as a teacher. At your service. All right.
Inquiry-based learning is just a fancy word for curiosity, right? So tell me, what child is not curious?
We as humans all question. That's how we learn. So the students should be questioning all the time.
Any questions?
We're trying to ignite passion and relevance. It's not just about finishing that assignment. It's about being able to explore something that I'm really interested in.
The basic steps in inquiry-based learning is to come up with a rich question, a question that doesn't have the answer already in it.
You begin with the questions that you really want to explore in a unit.
And then each unit has lines of inquiry that the students will be investigating. And the lines of inquiry are developed by the teacher, but with a lot of input and feedback from the students.
And that becomes the direction that the teacher takes the content. So the teacher will resource kids with opportunities to explore things that they're interested in within that line of inquiry. So kids are hitting the standards with the bigger questions and being able to create evidence of their understandings and their learnings in all.
Again, this is from Edutopia, and it's inquiry-based learning, developing student-driven questions, and it is a great short video to get teachers excited about potentially trying out this way of teaching. And of course, it is fully in alignment with the Universal Design for Learning framework. So there's lots of resources out there for teachers. The BCTF does have inquiry-based units and lessons available to teachers, and there's many other resources as well. Okay, talking about personal and social awareness and co-regulation techniques, this is an area that I'm very passionate about because, again, if people are well, if people are feeling comfortable, they are able to take risks with their academics, learn and grow. But if people do not feel well, they feel dysregulated, then that academic growth can come to a standstill, as we've seen, I'm sure, in schools and classrooms. So thinking about how educators set the scene with a calm environment, soft lighting, flexible seating. I've been in schools where every single classroom goes around with a checklist to see if they are trauma sensitive, if they are culturally sensitive in their classrooms, and what they can do more of. So if you go to cast.org or castle.org, there is a checklist for schools and classrooms to set the scene proactively for SEL. And then, of course, your voice, volume, and tone is so important. Using reflective language, naming the emotions, helping the students understand how to do that with each other, so that that could be part of making sure that the conflicts in the classroom are not bursting out of control all the time. Checking your physical presence as an educator and teaching younger, newer, early career teachers how to do that, getting down low and thinking about the use of proximity. And prompting calm down strategies and choices. When we know how to put these choices and these regulation strategies into play in our own bodies, then we feel more comfortable teaching them to our students. So I was lucky enough to do a 2-year yoga and meditation training with the Himalayan Yoga Society, and I learned so many things to do with breathing. And when we do this with our students, we can link movement to breath work, because I know that many students don't want to just sit there and focus on mindfulness and breathing. Many of them have to move at the same time. So I'm just going to show you a few of them in case you want to use them yourself, or use them with students, or teach them to early career teachers, or when you're co-teaching. So 4-7-8 breathing is a phenomenal one that I have used actually in very stressful situations in my life to calm my body down, because when we start to get anxiety, we can start to breathe in a shallow way, our breaths come faster, and then that can make people feel dizzy or go into full panic attacks. So if for 4-7-8 breathing, you would teach it to students, you would talk about the fact that they have a diaphragm muscle and they want to breathe with the full 100% capacity of their lungs. And when they go into a deep sleep at night, they do breathe in that full way, and that's what relaxes them at night. So how do they put that into play during the day? So you would inhale for 4 counts, hold your breath for 7 counts, and exhale for 8 counts. Have them sit up tall on their chair, sort of move towards the front of their chair. You can have them hold onto their stomach and expanding out like an accordion for the 4 seconds, and inhale through their nose for 4, hold for 7, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Prompt them to inhale 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You would do 4 rounds. You don't want to get going on this for too long because it can get too much oxygen, and then just have them relax and talk about how that made them feel. And some of my students have explained it as they feel like the cobwebs have been brushed off of their brain and body, and they feel better, and they can go into the next exercise, whether it's a test or something challenging academically, with that calmness. Linking movement to breath, they can do this on their chair or standing. They inhale the whole time, and as they touch, they might hold for a second and exhale the whole time their arms are going down. You can do a lot with that. You can do the rainbow sort of breathing where they go side to side and then exhale. Little ones, you can do it on the hands, the roller coaster breathing. Inhale as you go up with the other hand. Exhale. Inhale up. Exhale. Slow 5 breaths with tracing the fingers. Alternate nostril breathing. This is a yogic breathing where they would inhale through one nostril and then exhale through the other. Stay there and inhale and then exhale through the other. It's a pranayama technique that has been thousands of years old that can be practiced, but all of this breath work automatically, even from just demonstrating right now, it feels relaxing. So something to teach your students or have up on a screen. There's many YouTube videos. If you don't feel comfortable or a teacher doesn't feel comfortable, they should definitely put these wellness and breath breaks and movement breaks into the day for all students, and the teacher benefits. We can teach students how to do perspective taking so that they're not just thinking about themselves and how they see a situation. They're actually going past and thinking about how it would be to wear someone else's shoes and think about what the other person is experiencing or thinking in the situation. So some of the steps are, I think about you first, and then I think about what your motives are and your intentions. I think about what you are thinking about me in the moment, and I monitor and possibly change my behavior so that we both can feel and think similar ways. So this takes work, this takes practice. I think even adults are still practicing how to do perspective taking at times. Sometimes we feel like our way is the only way. So problem solving maps are good. Anything that's graphic that you can put up in your classroom and you can have students go through together, and maybe with a peer mediator or a staff mediator, teach the steps of coming up with solutions to a problem and what the consequences are. So consequence mapping. If I do this, what will be the consequence? Will it be a negative consequence, or could it be a more positive consequence? And then, of course, there is social skills diagrams that you can have up on the wall to talk about the steps of listen and share and check in with the other person and get their perspective, choose a solution together, and then affirm, forgive, and thank. This is a great video about conflict resolution and restorative circles, an Indigenous practice that has now been adopted in schools, and some counselors are using it. And you'd have to be trained specifically in this practice to use it, but it's something that you could ask to have more training on for the counseling department or even teachers from outside agencies. Let's watch just a few minutes of this video.
Jamie is a young person who found himself in conflict with the law after an incident occurred between him and a social worker.
He was trying to get me away from the door, and that's where I got my bruises on my arms. And because he kept pushing me against the filing cabinet. When I got to the office, I was just shaking. I didn't realize how much bruising there was and everything. And it was at that point my supervisor said, well, you know you're going to have to charge him.
The Crown attorney felt that the young person would benefit from a Healing to Wellness Court program. In Jamie's particular case, he had a lot of supports, and he personally felt that he was at risk of losing those supports if he didn't acknowledge the harm that was caused. And restorative justice was felt to be the most appropriate way to amend those relationships, to offer Jamie the opportunity to discuss how he felt and perhaps why he behaved the way he did. It was the most culturally appropriate and culturally sound way to deal with this justice matter.
The first time I met him, we're talking about a youth that had struggles in his life and going through so much, and he was pretty angry. And I do an assessment with them so that I understand more about what it is that they need. And then I make the call on who will be a part of that circle.
Restorative justice offers the community the ability to give input and to reshape relationships, and provides a space to do that where there is equality amongst all of the participants.
Jamie was a little nervous, I guess, because I think this was like being able to confront the person that he had done harm with. Because it was a person that he knew very well. I'm going to do the first round. And the first round, we're just going to say our name, what it is that we're here for, what we do, and pass the feather around. So I'm going to start. My name is...
I was being put into a different foster home, which I did not like. It wasn't really my decision, really. I either had to go there or that's pretty much my only choice. I guess my foster mom at the time needed a break from me, and I didn't really like that. So I was saying stuff like what I felt and what things that I was going through, and apologizing, you know, that I'm just sorry and then it won't happen again. And that I'm got better, that I'm the new Jamie.
When he apologized, it was a welcome surprise for me to hear it, yeah. But me and his foster mom started crying at that point because she's never heard it too, so it was really good to hear from him. I was glad I was able to tell him that I loved and cared about him, and that I was hoping that we would be able to repair our relationship again and start working on goals for him, not just for me, but goals for a better future for him.
I think it's important that we stand behind Jamie and listen to him and continue to have open ears to how he's feeling and what he feels he needs to do to move forward.
It's a healing he's going through now, so to be adult and continue, get ready for his next step of life.
He liked building. He wanted to know how to make a drum, and that was one of the recommendations that was put in place.
how do you feel about what he has shared with us today?
I accept his apology. He spoke of his difficulties in changing some of his behavior. I was able to see him in a different light and look at him, at what he was going through, because he never told me before. It was a good healing process. Yeah, it ended up including the foster parent too, so, which is good.
I felt that it was very necessary for me to be in that circle because I knew that after everything was said and done that I've got a second chance and then that I can keep going.
So that is a very interesting process to me, and I've seen some training go on when I was working in Chicago in the schools there, and it can be a very effective. Restorative circles can be very effective. So it's something I would say school districts should look into, bringing in specific trainers to help train, especially the counseling staff, youth care workers, etc. in this.
Sarah, thank you so much for presenting to us today, and we appreciate the fact that you put your time, your mental load, and your energy to be able to share with us your expertise on accessibility and supporting students with diversities. And thank you so much for being our district contact with the Accessible Resource at British Columbia, Accessible Resource Center, British Columbia. And I hope that all those that are listening right now or are watching, that you will join us for our Spring Lunch and Learn series. We will be doing one in April and we will be doing one in May. And we're just going to keep on going with these lunch and learns so that we can spread the news about digital accessibility and the importance of being able to support students with diversities. So I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks again for joining us for our 2025 Winter Series Session 2. And thank you again, Sarah, for being with us. And with that, do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. Thank you.